The COP28 allowed some significant advancements in areas such as the phase down of fossil fuels and also in terms of resource mobilization for the loss and damage fund, with increased pledging of $800 million. We need to take decisive action on how to meet the needs of fast-growing population in order that the demographic dividend will not become a demographic bomb. Taha Amiar, I am a Moroccan sustainable development specialist with experience in either Northern and Western Africa in climate action, biodiversity conservation. My interest for climate action lies in its importance for our human conditions. I have been acquainted with this area and with these topics for the last 15 years, and I am truly committed to raise awareness and to engage with all kinds of stakeholders and communities to foster good practice and to get back on track as to climate objectives. African Climate Summit in 2023 in Nairobi was an opportunity to go beyond the negotiation aspect of the conference of the parties and to foster the conditions for more implementation-geared action, taking also in consideration the specificities of the African countries in the negotiations, and to build upon all the pledges and commitment of the international community towards the African continent. In addition to figure out how to pave the way for the implementation of all the long-term strategies, the resilience and climate action strategy and action plan of the African Union, and to set up a framework to support the African countries achieving their national determined contributions. The main outcomes of the African Climate Summit as to agriculture and land use were to acknowledge the need of bold action to push back the effects of desertification, as we lose 12 million hectares of arable lands, and also to consider that that marketing information that we always hear about Africa, that it still has 60% of remaining arable lands are more a statement on food insecurity rather than a statement on economic opportunity. And also we need to take decisive action on how to meet the needs of fast-growing population in order that the demographic dividend will not become a demographic bomb. And also with what it implies in terms of water resource increase, depletion, and also the compounding effect in terms of the nexus between food and energy. Also, the African Climate Summit was a preparatory platform for the Alliance for Champions for Food Systems Transformation that was further formalized in the COP22 in Egypt. That included the United States, Cambodia, Norway, and also two African countries, namely Sierra Leone and Rwanda. And the idea was also to showcase the inclusion of small country, if I may say, rather than the usual South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, that are more parties in this kind of initiative for Africa. And it stated also the failure of international community to meet its commitments in terms of climate finance mobilization. The Global Center Adaptation, which African office is hosted by the African Development Bank, states, for example, that African countries need more than $40 billion yearly for their climate action commitment, and also we need to really pay attention to the fact that agriculture and land use are kind of crossroads of all African development challenges, because it's about food security, biodiversity conservation with all the ecosystemic services that this imply, and also a well-organized urban planning and urban development, because the continuous spreading of African cities is a big threat on all the willingness of the policymakers. Thank you very much. The COP28 allowed some significant advancements in areas such as the phase down of fossil fuels, and also in terms of resource mobilization for the loss and damage fund, with increased pledging of $800 million. And as to agriculture and land use, there were two significant initiatives. The first one was, as I mentioned, the consolidation and setup of the Alliance of Champions for Food Systems Transformation that convened 5 countries from 3 continents, and 2 of them were African. These are Sierra Leone and Rwanda, and the others were the United States, Norway, and Cambodia. And this initiative was significant as the African countries that were showcased were taken from different subregions in Africa, the eastern and the western subregion, and the second initiative that was more related to agriculture and land use was the setup of the commitment of both of United Arab Emirates and the Belinda the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to pledge $200 million each for food security related initiatives in the upcoming period. Let me add, before concluding, that as to agriculture and land use are very closely related, and that any initiative taken on biodiversity conservation as to the maintenance and stewardship and conservation of specific ecosystems such as mangroves area, peatlands, savanna, allow to develop favorable livelihoods for local community that allow to reduce the pressure on land, and also the specificities of agriculture and land use topics are that they relate to at least 3 SDGs that are the SDG 2 related to the fighting hunger, SDG 6 related to water management, and SDG 15 related to managing life on Earth. So any initiative that is successfully carried out on other topic can have positive impact on policy making and decision making related to agriculture and land use. And let me also add that the issue of agriculture and its nexus in the food land conservation nexus is that 60% of agriculture in Africa is managed by small farmers that rely on rain-fed agriculture. The issue is that we have lost already 34% of land productivity since 1960, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, and that also the rainfall are both shorter and more intensive, which make it more difficult to manage. So the challenge are really huge, and we need a comprehensive approach to assess all the drivers, the impacts, and the pressure to try to advocate for restoration of good livelihoods for the African communities. As I have said just in the previous question, the nexus between food systems and ecosystems is very strong in Africa. The IBES Africa Assessment Report in 2018 has stated that 68% of African population rely directly on ecosystemic services that are the benefits for people that are taken from nature. And we need to think in a more systemic approach, and understanding that preserving biodiversity and endemic ecosystems act as a buffer and a protection for the food security itself. Because even maintaining trees in the fields, for example, that can be considered as for a farmer as a loss of field and the loss of opportunity to increase its revenue, because having few trees can take out some 100 meters of arable lands for him. So keeping the trees is allowing habitat for the birds, for example, and birds get food from the insects that are an enemy of the fields. So what community needs to be aware is the circularity of food chains, and also the indirect benefit that we can get from just natural settings. And to set up the effectiveness of such initiative, we need to build a framework for good stakeholder engagement between the policymakers, the scientific academy, and to tap into the potential of the local knowledge of the communities, and to listen to each other, because many studies have been carried out on and have shown the effects and impacts of conservation of biodiversity, and showing that, for example, in West Africa, yields in cocoa or hevea fields are higher in areas that are closer to natural parks than in areas that are far from the natural parks. International statement like this, like the African Union Food Resilience Strategy and Action Plan, is always high. It shows the path for the member countries to align their national development plans and agriculture sectorial action plans with this strategy and action plan. I think that the strategy and action plan is always an opportunity to foster the mobilization of decision makers and the science policy interface in the member countries, and to keep in mind that ensuring food security and upscaling also the agriculture chain value chain are critical to ensure the overall development of African Union member countries. Dealing with food systems and agriculture and land use is important for the climate action to be taken by African countries, in that it's based on the nexus between the livelihoods and what makes the biology of life on Earth, because as I mentioned, there are ecosystemic services that are from which the population benefits, but for example, if natural parks are encroached or are reduced, then on the long run, we can easily observe a decrease in agriculture productivity. So there is kind of circularity that we need to maintain and not break. And maintaining and ensuring that soils are healthy through a minimal carbon, maintaining organic material in the soil that can capture carbon in a very low proportion, that is actually 0.4 gram per hectare of organic material can help to store up to 1.2 billion tons of carbon dioxide only by maintaining healthy soil. And we need also to pay attention to the high level of productivity of specific ecosystems, such as mangroves, for which scientific literature have stated that they have a value of between $10,000 and $15,000 per hectare in terms of economic value of ecosystemic services, because mangroves are habitat for fish and for crabs that are important for the coastal communities, but also in terms of carbon storage. Mangroves are, for example, and other wetlands such as peatlands and marshes. Mangroves are store up to 5 more carbon dioxide than other dryland ecosystems. So these are examples that showcase how good management of agriculture practice and land use are related to climate action in Africa. I think that African countries have, over the last 10 to 15 years, have benefited of many technical assistance initiatives through NGOs or national European or American cooperation agencies, and also they have commitments from the countries. So the opportunities in terms of climate action are to really take action, to show the willingness to go beyond that small projects that are carried in some sample areas, and to try to really draw lessons and best practice to streamline them in all the countries. For example, and I will come and I can come back with example later. The second issue is related to the resource mobilization effectiveness, because the commitment is always the commitments of Western countries in order to come to set off their parts for fair and just climate transition are not followed by significant pledging, and then even with pledges lower than commitments, the further mobilization and payments are even lower than the pledging. And I think that African countries need to show their willingness to really tap in the potential of good practices of all the studies that are carried and all the field experience to be entrusted by the international donors, so that international donors are also more encouraged to work their talk. My message to African leaders is, as to climate action, is to rely on the national expertise available through science policy interface mechanisms that are regularly convened and consulted to steer development plans according to evidence-based data and insights, and also to not have a short-term perception of the benefits that can be, for example, eventually perceived from oil exploitation or mining, because mining, for example, also jeopardizes the quality of water resources, and that implies also a strong threat on the food security itself, for example, and also to not ignore the development of rural area, to have a comprehensive approach of their national development plans.